I'm a huge Matt Damon fan ever since Good Will Hunting, and naturally, I love the Jason Bourne franchise. I've watched each of the 5 movies a couple of times. I wouldn't say it's one of the best action franchises, but it's definitely one of the better ones. I first watched The Bourne Identity with my roommates in college on a damaged DVD we got from the guys who lived in the room next to us, so I feel a bit nostalgic about those good old days. A few days ago, I heard that the director of Bourne 6, Edward Berger, dropped an update, so I dug around to find everything related to the sequel. Here's what I found out. Last year, when we first heard about the potential for Bourne 6, it felt like a big deal. The director chosen to take on the next installment in the Jason Bourne saga was none other than Edward Berger, the filmmaker behind the Oscar-winning All Quiet on the Western Front. That alone had fans buzzing. Why? Because with All Quiet, Berger proved that he could take a familiar story and make it fresh and gripping. The excitement skyrocketed, especially when rumors started circulating that Matt Damon, yes, Matt Damon, might return to reprise his role as the legendary CIA assassin, Jason Bourne. It had all the ingredients for a killer comeback, but as the months have gone by, we've heard very little about the movie's progress. And now, in a recent interview, Berger shared some candid thoughts that have left a lot of us wondering if Bourne 6 is even happening anytime soon, or at all. Berger recently sat down with Cinema Daily US to chat about his new project, the religious thriller Conclave. During the interview, the topic of Bourne 6 came up, and let me tell you, his response wasn't exactly what we were hoping for. In short, things are moving much slower than expected. Berger explained that right now, he's tied up with other projects, Conclave and The Ballad of a Small Prayer, which will keep him busy until next summer. But here's the kicker. When asked about the future of Bourne 6, he admitted that while he's not ruling it out entirely, he hasn't made any major progress on it. He doesn't even know when he'll be able to dive back into it. Check out what he had to say. Well, I mean, it's really not clear whether I'm not doing it right now, and I really don't know what I will do in the future. There's a bunch of options, and I have to bring out this movie Conclave to the theater quickly. I have to finish The Ballad of a Small Prayer, which takes me until next summer, so anything that goes beyond is kind of beyond my comprehension. But Bourne is a wonderful franchise, and if there ever were, but I don't have it, but if there ever were an element that hasn't been told yet, and a good reason to bring it back, and for me to have the feeling I can make the movie as good as Paul Greengrass did, because he did great films, and that is a very high hurdle to jump over, you know? So, if you were hoping for a concrete timeline or some exciting news about Bourne 6, well, that wasn't it. Instead, what we got was an update that revealed just how cautious Berger is about taking on such a massive, high-stakes project. And honestly, can you blame him? Following in the footsteps of Paul Greengrass, who directed some of the most iconic films in the Bourne series, is no easy task. Greengrass set the bar incredibly high, not just in terms of action, but in storytelling too. For Berger, it sounds like he's not willing to dive into Bourne 6 unless he feels like he can do justice to the franchise, and I respect that. After all, The Bourne Ultimatum is still considered one of the best action movies of all time. It's a big ask to follow up on that legacy. So what does all this mean for Bourne 6? Is it in danger of being abandoned altogether? Honestly, it's too early to say, but there are a few key takeaways from Berger's comments. First off, it's clear that the project isn't dead, but it's also not moving forward at the pace we were all hoping for. The director is still interested in the Bourne franchise, but only if he can come up with a story that lives up to the legacy of the previous films. And that makes sense. Jason Bourne is one of the most iconic characters in action cinema, so any continuation of his story needs to have a solid reason to exist. It can't just be another run-of-the-mill spy flick. It has to add something new to the Bourne universe, or else it's just not worth making. Second, it looks like Berger is waiting for the right idea. He's not about to rush into it just for the sake of it. He wants to make sure the film can stand on its own merits and live up to the high standards set by Paul Greengrass films. And you know what? I'd rather wait for a great script than rush into something that could tarnish the franchise. Another big question on everyone's mind is whether Matt Damon will return for Bourne 6. The actor has said he's interested, but as Berger pointed out, it all comes down to the quality of the story. Damon wouldn't come back just for the paycheck. He wants something new to challenge him. He's looking for an inner journey for Jason Bourne, something that pushes the character in fresh directions. Here's what Berger had to say about Damon's involvement. "You really need a new agenda of bringing that back. Otherwise, there's really no reason. You can only bring it back if you have something new to tell, something new to add. That would probably also be Matt Damon's only reason to come back. He's not going to need money. He's not going to need to make this. If he can have an inner journey, if an actor finds that to play, then that's a wonderful challenge, and if you can't find it, then better not make a movie like that." So if you're holding out hope for Damon's return, it's not off the table, but it'll depend on whether the story can meet the high bar set by the earlier films. As it stands, there's been very little progress on Bourne 6 over the past year. While the initial announcement got fans excited, it seems like development has stalled a bit. One reason could be that Berger has a full plate with other projects like Conclave and The Ballad of a Small Prayer. But it's also possible that Universal, the studio behind the Bourne franchise, is taking its time to ensure the sequel lives up to expectations. After all, the gap between Jason Bourne, 2016, and Bourne 6 is already pushing 8 years. Now, I know what you're thinking. 8 years? That's a long time to wait for a sequel, and you're absolutely right. But let's think about it for a moment. The Bourne franchise has always been about pushing boundaries, both in action and storytelling. And maybe, just maybe, the studio wants to make sure the next installment isn't just a cash grab, but a film that respects the legacy of the series. It could be that they're willing to wait a bit longer to make sure they get it right. The truth is, fans would rather wait a bit longer for a well-crafted movie than rush out a mediocre sequel. So, what are the chances of Bourne 6 actually happening? It's hard to say. While there's no official confirmation that the project has been scrapped, it's clear that the path forward isn't as straightforward as we might have hoped. The good news is that Edward Berger is still open to the idea of making Bourne 6, but only if the right story comes along. It seems that Universal might be willing to take its time too, giving Berger the space he needs to craft a worthy addition to the franchise. There's also the matter of Matt Damon's involvement. We know that Damon isn't coming back just for the paycheck. He's a true artist, and he wants to ensure that Jason Bourne has a meaningful journey, something that challenges him as an actor. This means that if the story isn't up to par, Damon's return is highly unlikely. But if the script can offer something fresh and exciting for Bourne's character, then we might just see Damon suit up as the legendary CIA assassin again. For now, it looks like Bourne 6 is in limbo. While Edward Berger hasn't walked away from the film entirely, he's made it clear that he's not moving forward unless he feels he can do it justice. And as for Matt Damon, his return depends entirely on the quality of the story. We'll have to wait and see how things develop. Hopefully, we'll get more updates soon, but in the meantime, I'll be keeping my fingers crossed that Bourne 6 gets the sequel it truly deserves. What do you think about this update? Are you still holding out hope for Bourne 6? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe for more updates on all your favorite movies and franchises. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.